NBA Bombshell. Warriors make mega trade for Michael Porter Jr. No one saw it coming. Imagine waking up and seeing the notification. Warriors trade for Michael Porter Jr. You, as a fan, must have gotten tired of seeing the team waste the end of the Curry era with half-assed negotiations, right? There's that feeling of, no one knows what they're doing. Calm down, because in today's video, I'm going to show you step by step what's behind this change, if it really makes sense, how Porter Jr. fits into the team, and most importantly, if this is the move that can put the Warriors back into serious title contention. Before we get into this Warriors negotiation in depth, let's do the following. If you live the NBA, talk about basketball with your friends, and don't like hearing about things late, subscribe to the channel now because there's content every day so you don't miss any movement in this market. Leave a like because this shows YouTube that you enjoy this type of video and helps me bring even more awesome analysis like this. And look, activate the bell to be notified whenever a new video comes out. This way, you will always be the first in the group to know about NBA bombs. Now, let's go to the video because I'm going to explain in detail who arrived, who left, and what this exchange changes for the Warriors' future. Don't skip it, because every detail matters in this negotiation. Imagine the scene with me. You wake up, pick up your cell phone to check the NBA news, and come across something like, Warriors are studying a strong trade for Michael Porter Jr. At the same time, the thought comes automatically, what do you mean? Who are they going to change? What does this mean for the future of the team? This type of news stirs not only the curiosity, but the emotion of anyone who follows basketball closely, especially those who grew up watching Golden State mark an era. It is precisely in this scenario that the possibility of the Golden State Warriors placing Jonathan Kuminga on the market as soon as he becomes eligible for exchange on January 15th begins to gain momentum in a negotiation that would target Michael Porter Jr., currently with the Brooklyn Nets. It's not just a loose rumor. It's the type of speculation that makes sense when we look at the moment of each franchise and the profile of the players involved. The starting point to understand all this is the phase in which the Warriors find themselves. The franchise still lives in the Stephen Curry era, but it no longer has the same freshness as the first titles. Curry remains brilliant, capable of single-handedly deciding games and changing the course of entire games with a sequence of impossible shots. However, time passes for everyone, and the window in which he can lead a team to the title with consistency is not eternal. Every season that passes without Golden State truly at the top of the championship fight comes with a nagging feeling of waste. At the same time, the team's management tried to build a transition path, mixing established veterans with promising young people. The idea was to keep the team competitive in the present while preparing for the future. Jonathan Kuminga is one of the clearest symbols of this attempt. He is young, athletic, has a privileged physique, flashes of great talent, and the potential to be an important player on both sides of the court. But potential alone does not win the playoffs. And that's where the franchise's internal conflict begins. Kuminga still fluctuates too much. There are nights when he seems ready to take the next step and become a protagonist, and others when he simply goes unnoticed on the court, especially in decisive moments or in more complex tactical contexts. For a team that cannot afford to wait indefinitely for this evolution, every minute of irregularity weighs heavily, and when a player at this stage in his career becomes eligible for a trade, his name inevitably enters the conversation. On the other side of this equation is Michael Porter Jr. In Brooklyn, he is experiencing the best phase of his career. His numbers in points, rebounds, assists, and three-pointers are outstanding, and the most interesting thing is that he has shown that he can be more than just a luxury supporting player. If in Denver he was an efficient finisher alongside Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, in Brooklyn he has assumed the role of the main offensive option in many moments, maintaining a high level of production. When we think about the Warriors' style of play, it's easy to see why a player like Porter Jr. attracts so much attention. Golden State's attack is not based on endless isolations or a single player holding the ball and deciding everything. On the contrary, the system is built on constant movement, reading the game, cuts without the ball, indirect blocks, and, of course, maximum spacing so that shooters can punish any error in defensive rotation. Porter Jr. fits naturally into this type of dynamic. He knows how to move around, take advantage of blocks, appear in open spaces, attack closeouts, and shoot with confidence from the perimeter. It's no surprise that analysts like Zach Buckley from Bleacher Report suggest a package involving Kuminga, Moody, Buddy Hield, and draft picks in exchange for Michael Porter Jr. The proposal, in general terms, would be something like this. The Warriors would receive Porter Jr., while the Nets would get Kuminga, Moody, Hield, a first-round pick in 2026 with top 4 protection, and the right to exchange a first-round pick in 2028. In a first look, it seems heavy. Taking away 2 young talents, adding a veteran pitcher, and still giving up draft capital for a single player is something that naturally makes any fan take a deep breath before giving their opinion. The question that arises is inevitable. Isn't it too much for Michael Porter Jr.? The doubt gains strength when we remember the defensive reputation he carried for a long time since his time in Denver, often criticized for wavering in rotations, for having difficulty in some defensive exchanges, and for not always maintaining the same intensity when marking. In a team that intends to go far in the playoffs, these aspects cannot be ignored. However, there is another side to this analysis. The Warriors today are not just looking for good players. They need concrete solutions to specific problems. One of the biggest ones is Curry's over-reliance on offense. Even with the team leading the league in three-pointers converted per game, the total use is still not among the most efficient. This reveals something important. The volume is great, but the consistency of good shooters around the number 30 is not ideal. Moody, for example, has been one of the few to maintain a good performance from long distance, with respectable averages on 3 balls and solid use. But the game isn't just about throwing. Moody has yet to develop into a player capable of impacting the offense in multiple ways. There are entire games where he produces little beyond shots from the perimeter. Kuminga, although it delivers energy, infiltrations, and physical impact, still does not offer the spacing that Golden State's system requires to function at its best. The result is an attack that, in many moments, comes down to waiting for Curry to resolve. When he is inspired, everything seems easy. When he faces a more adjusted defense, which pursues him in every block, doubles his marking, and forces him to get rid of the ball, the lack of someone who takes responsibility with the same level of constant threat becomes evident. It is precisely in this void that the figure of Michael Porter Jr. gains strength. He's not just a good pitcher. He is someone who can carry a considerable portion of the team's scoring, punish defenses that overly focus on Curry, and force opponents to completely rethink the way they guard the Warriors. Imagine, for example, a half-court situation in which Curry comes out of a block, receives a double mark, and releases the ball to Draymond Green at the top of the box. If, on one of the wings, Porter Jr. is ready to shoot, the defense's job becomes dramatically complicated. Any second of hesitation becomes a free throw, and with a player like that, a free throw usually means a three-pointer on the scoreboard. The offensive fit seems almost natural. He could play as a wing in traditional formations, as a false power forward in lower lineups, alternating roles with Draymond, attacking closeouts, cutting towards the basket when the defense gets too far forward on the perimeter. In a system that values reading and movement so much, this is gold. Furthermore, even if he is not an elite defender, the simple fact of increasing the team's firepower so much can compensate for some deficiencies, as long as the rest of the defensive system is well adjusted. Of course, there is also the financial issue. Porter Jr.'s contract is hefty, with a salary in the tens of millions of dollars. For many franchises, this would be reason to back off. But in the case of the Warriors, the reasoning goes through another logic. Porter's financial commitment follows, in general terms, the same timeline as the team's main veterans, with expirations scheduled for a period close to the end of Curry and Draymond's contracts. This means that the board would, in practice, be betting everything on a specific window until mid-2027. After that, it would have the chance to completely reevaluate the direction of the franchise, with room for reconstruction, reformulation, or another type of deep restructuring. On the Brooklyn Nets side, the equation is different. With a weak campaign, on a clear route to the draft lottery, the priority stops being winning now and becomes accumulating assets, developing young people, and putting themselves in a favorable position to build a competitive future. Receiving players like Kuminga and Moody, along with draft picks and a veteran like Hield, can be exactly the kind of package that speeds up a rebuild. The team could continue investing in developing talents, such as Igor Demon and Noah Clowney, while organizing itself to try to get a high pick in a promising draft. In that context, it makes sense for Brooklyn to consider letting go of Michael Porter Jr., even though he's having a great time. In a team that is not ready to compete for the top, the player in the best phase is often precisely the most valuable asset to generate returns in the form of young players and choices. What makes all of this so interesting is that behind the numbers, projections, and contracts, there is a strong emotional element. In Golden State, deciding whether or not it is worth giving up Kuminga, Moody, and choices for Porter Jr. is, in large part, deciding what kind of message the board wants to send to the squad and the fans. By betting on MPJ, the Warriors would be saying loud and clear that they will not passively watch the end of the Curry era. They would be making it clear that if it is necessary to pay dearly to have a real chance of fighting for the title in the coming years, that price will be paid. At the same time, there is an understandable fear. The possibility of seeing Kuminga or Moody develop into great players in the future, while Porter Jr. eventually faces injuries, fluctuations, or not living up to expectations on playoff floors. This risk exists. But in high-level sports, especially in a league as competitive as the NBA, there is no path without risk when trying to shorten the distance to the title. If this trade comes to fruition, we will see a new chapter in the Warriors' recent history. A team with Curry, Klay Thompson, Michael Porter Jr., and Draymond Green on the court, surrounded by complementary pieces and adjusted by a coach who knows his own squad like few others, would have enormous offensive potential. The defense would have challenges without a doubt, but with a well-worked system and specific adjustments, it would be possible to find an interesting balance. For the Nets, it would be confirmation of a definitive change of route towards reconstruction, betting on youth, patience, and planning. Instead of trying to shorten paths at any cost, the franchise would embrace the idea of building step by step, accumulating talents and choices, trusting that, in a few years, the effort could translate into a new competitive core. In the end, the possible trade between the Warriors and Nets for Michael Porter Jr. and Jonathan Kuminga is much more than a simple name movement. It is a clash of priorities, moments, and philosophies. On the one hand, the urgency to make the most of every last drop of a legend's talent. On the other, the calm, forced or not, of those who need to start over. And it is precisely this mix of risk, ambition, and uncertainty that makes the NBA so engaging for those who follow every detail. So if this exchange really gets off the ground, we're not just talking about another market movement. We're talking about changing the course of the Stephen Curry era. Either the Warriors take the risk once and for all, bet big on Michael Porter Jr., and try to squeeze every last drop out of this title window, or they remain stuck in this middle ground where they neither fully develop the young players nor deliver the ideal structure for their greatest player of all time. Now I want to hear from you. Is it worth paying this price for MPJ or not? If you've made it this far, it's because you breathe Warriors, breathe NBA, and like in-depth analysis, without superficiality. So once this video is over, do the following. Go straight to the Warriors Analyses playlist that I left in the pinned comment. There is content after content breaking down the cast, possible changes, future scenarios, tactical adjustments, and everything that could affect the fate of the franchise. Click on the playlist, binge watch the videos, and let's continue this conversation there. Because if there's one thing that's certain, it's the Warriors' future is far from monotonous, and we'll analyze each step together.